Hi, my name is Bengisu Cagiltay, and in this presentation, I'll be discussing our work for understanding factors that shape children's long-term engagement with an in-home learning companion robot. This work was with my collaborators Nathan White, Rabia Ibtisar, Joseph Michaelis, and Bilge Mutlu. In human-robot interaction studies within controlled lab environments and short-term studies, we can control most of the external factors and focus on the interaction between the child and the robot itself. However, our understanding of child-robot interactions from these lab settings is incomplete since controlled and short-term studies do not consider all external factors that might appear in real-life settings. To lay the motivation of our work, let's consider this family interaction. Here we have a setting where a child, Sarah, is reading a book to her parent in their living room. There might be many factors in the home that might impact Sarah's reading. For example, in the background, Sarah's brother is playing with their father while the family pet is begging for attention. And when we would introduce a social robot into this scenario, where the robot's role is a reading companion for the child, these factors within the child's life and in the in-home dynamics may influence the interactions with the robot. Overall, if we want to understand how to maintain children's real-world long-term engagement with robots, we will need to conduct long-term investigations within naturalistic in-home environments. Thus, in our work, we aim to address the following research questions. What are the factors in authentic, in-home child-robot interactions that affect children's interest in reading popular science books and long-term engagement with a learning companion robot? Here, I'll give an overview of the elements of our study. We will first provide insight into the interaction design of our robot and its social commentary design. We will then present our method for a 1-month field deployment. And finally, we will present our findings from this field deployment regarding children's long-term engagement with the robot. We'll first start by illustrating our robot interaction design. We designed the robot's interaction in the following way. First, the child turns the robot on and it waits for it to wake up. Then the robot asks for the child to identify themselves, and the child shows their unique journal, which the robot then responds with a greeting and acknowledging the child's name. The robot follows up with some book recommendations or gives a summary of their last interaction. The child then selects a book they want to read and sets their daily reading goal. For the reading phase, the child reads out loud to the robot as long as they wish, and the robot listens to the child. At any point of the reading, the child can show the robot April tags on the book, which are special indicators similar to QR codes that allow the robot to understand which page they are on. These tags are placed every 2 to 3 pages of each book that we provided, so these commentaries from the robot can be triggered fairly frequently over the reading interaction. Once the child shows one of these tags to the robot responds by expressing a commentary related to the content that was read. Finally, once the child decides to finish reading, they turn the robot off and place it on the charging pad where the robot goes to sleep. As we introduced in the robot's interaction design, the robot's social commentaries also play a key role in the interaction with the child. We designed each social commentary for the robot, which would be expressed within every 2 to 3 pages of 20 informal science books that we provided. The social commentaries were in these 3 categories. First, social support comments had the goal to form social connections with the robot and the child through self-disclosure or emotion expressions. Knowledge support comments had the goal to support the child's understanding of the book through making a prediction, summarizing the content of the book, asking questions, or supporting vocabulary. And interest support comments had the goal to promote interest in science by conveying value and belongingness towards the science concepts. Further details and specific examples of all of these commentaries can be found in our paper and the open source resources that we provided. We deployed this robot in the field for a month in an exploratory field deployment in the summer of 2021. We did not focus on any comparisons, as our focus was to explore children's long-term engagement with the robot and how this interaction was formed in a naturalistic setting. In the deployment, children were free to interact with the robot based on their own preference, but our only recommendation was for them to try to read at least 15 minutes every day. We had weekly check-in meetings over Zoom with the children and parents, and children were also provided with journals with daily entry spots for their interaction. In total, we collected data from 14 families, and children were aged between 10 to 12, and in total, the children had the robot for 4 weeks. We categorized our findings combining interaction log data and interviews throughout the field deployment in 2 major areas. We will first describe the critical factors that influence the children's experience and engagement with the robot. For the critical factors, we first identified external factors that influence the engagement with the robot. First, external prompts acted as a motivational factor to sustain engagement with the robot, such as reminders or prompts for family members to read with the robot. Or life events and interruptions such as week-long vacations, short family visits, daily sports practices, and new hobbies or classes affected the interaction. And the immediacy of the robot by having it placed in an immediate location that is highly visible, such as the common area in the living room, their bedroom, or their play or study room, helped them notice the robot and be motivated to start reading with it. Furthermore, children's routines such as having a fixed time set every day and taking a day off from reading with the robot were also a part of the factors that impacted engagement. Second, we identified internal factors covering children's individual interest regarding elements related to our interaction design. For example, children's individual interest in the robot's interaction flow, which covered the moment from waking the robot up and reading through the reading interaction flow and shutting it down, impacted their engagement with the robot. Secondly, the materials that we provided, such as the books and their topics, impacted their engagement as children went through the books they liked quickly, but for example, 5 books from the set of 20 weren't read by any child. And their interest towards the robot's social commentaries varied throughout the study. More details into these factors can be found in our paper. Next, we will present our second set of findings, 4 cases that demonstrate how factors shape children's long-term engagement. These 4 cases were categorized in the following way: children that modified their interaction, children that discontinued the use of the robot, children that were interrupted through the 1-month deployment, and children that adapted the use of the robot completely. There were 3 children that adjusted their interaction with the robot over time by changing their reading style from the recommended interaction design. 2 children discontinued the use of the robot after the 2nd week. 3 children experienced at least 1 week-long interruption and canceled at least 1 weekly interview. And 6 children adapted the technology and interacted with the robot regularly on a daily or almost daily basis. For the modified case, the main disengaging factor was not being interested in reading aloud or listening to the robot's social commentaries. The supporting factors for engagement were parental prompts and the child's individual interest in the books and the robot's verbal and nonverbal expressions. As a result of these factors, children in this case were observed to modify their interaction by either stopping to read aloud or stopping to show the tags to the robot. For the discontinued case, the main disengaging factor was not being interested in reading aloud or with the robot's interaction in general. The supporting factors for engagement was being interested in the books provided. As a result of these factors, children in this case were observed to continue interacting with the robot, however, expressed that they have continued reading the books on their own. As a contrast, these children did not have parental prompts to motivate them to continue interacting with the robot compared to the children in the prior case. Children were categorized in this group if they were interrupted for at least 1 week during the monthly deployment. These interruptions typically were vacations, family visits, or hobbies such as baseball or soccer practices. As a result of these interruption factors, children in this case were observed to rarely be able to continue their pace of their reading after the interruption. However, children who had positive interest towards the books, the robot, or the robot's commentaries were observed to continue reading after the interruptions. However, children without these positive factors were rarely able to keep up after the week-long interruption. For the children that adopted the interaction, the key supportive factors for engagement were high interest in the robot's social commentaries and the books provided. Furthermore, the immediacy of the robot, such as being placed in a common space as a living room or playroom, along with children's routines around the robot and parental prompts, were key factors that helped the child adopt and continue interacting with the robot regularly in the long term. This finalizes all of our findings, and now we'll discuss key factors for practical design in long-term interaction. Overall, when it comes to long-term interactions, it might be key for the robot to have more than one activity, more than one role within the interaction to support the children that were identified to be disengaged with the robot's shared activities. Secondly, our findings highlighted that a variety of factors that impacted children's engagement and personalized strategies tailored to factors that led to disengagement could be key to support long-term interactions. For example, we found that connecting to past or recent robot interactions has made an impression on many children, but not for some, which calls for a personalized strategy. Finally, the nature of field deployments limits the insight into the context of the data. Multifaceted data collection approaches did not only help us triangulate our data, but also highlight any conflicts that occurred and that did not appear in one data source. For example, information that was not captured in the interviews were captured through interaction logs or video logs. Or similarly, the missing quantitative entries within children's daily journals were able to be validated through interaction logs and through qualitative measures within the interviews. Overall, our work helps us better understand the factors that shape children's long-term engagement with an in-home social robot. Thank you for watching, and please feel free to contact me or my co-authors for any further information.